Good evening. Hari Om to everybody. I hope all of you are ready with your Kindle Lives. Let us begin the session today by some prayers. Jagdish.
समस्त जन कल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम. Kindle Life is a text based on scriptures, the Indian scriptures. Why study scriptures? What is the need of studying scriptures in the modern times? We are all okay without even studying scriptures. Some of us may be having this kind of feeling. Kindle Life explains the basics of the logic of spirituality, the science of life, and the art of living. We all know the prerequisite for right action is right thinking. Scriptural knowledge gets our mind and intellect into three perfect modes. One, it makes it subtler. Second, sharper. And third, fit for right thinking. We are all scientifically temperamented people, modern people. Why not study for ourselves, analyze ourselves whether this is a fact or not? Shall we?
Sure.
Please.
Let us begin now with the reading of Kindle Life. Chapter number 1, Freedom and License. Man has made this world a glorious place to live in. The phenomenal powers which have been threatening and persecuting mankind all along have been tamed and harnessed to serve him. The land which was barren or wild has been prepared to yield an abundance of food. People have grown from a primitive and barbarous state to be a civilized and intelligent society. The comforts and amenities provided are almost heavenly, and man has been indulging in them without the least restraint. However, sitting amidst a mountain of wealth and prosperity, man lives a life of worry, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. This sad paradox has been the subject of investigation by spiritual masters who dedicated their lives for the general welfare of mankind. In their subtle enquiries, they discovered that uncontrolled and excessive indulgence in sensual enjoyments causes dissipation of one's personalities and leads to sorrow and misery. For example, the first helping of a sweetmeat is delicious to eat. The second, the third have a diminishing value, while the 20th is not only sickening but also detrimental to one's health. Hence, our ancient benefactors formulated certain basic regulations of self-restraint and discipline for gaining a more permanent joy out of our relationship with the world of objects. But the essential nature of man being absolute freedom, he detests any shackles being put on him. He does not relish being told what to do or what not to do. To him, injunctions and precepts are like a red rag to a bull. Therefore, he revolts against the idea of any spiritual practice of self-denial. Little does he realize that freedom is essentially built on intelligent self-restraint and discipline. For instance, the traffic lights on our roads are undoubtedly a restraint laid down by the government on our freedom. But such restraint alone lends a meaning to the freedom of movement and checks its degradation into licentiousness. This inability to distinguish between freedom and license is at the root of the modern man's aversion to religion. The religious textbooks provide us with the material for a subjective scientific analysis by which we can intelligently understand and appreciate the necessity for such voluntary self-restraint. They serve the same purpose as manuals supplied with the machine for its efficient use. Similarly, the human machine, the most complex entity in nature, also needs certain adjustments and tuning up according to the manuals of religion, so that it may function efficiently in all its contacts with the world of things and beings. Man is given the liberty either to eke out the maximum happiness for him by following these instructions and harnessing his equipment, or to disregard them, inviting sorrow and suffering for himself. His alone is the choice to make or mar himself and his happiness. Thus, the scriptural books provide an exhaustive science of better living, and in our maturity, we find in them a complete technique of self-development, culminating in the experience of the supreme reality. In our attempt to develop ourselves to the stature of a well-integrated nation, why should we not bring this proved and well-tested method into use? This is the first and the short chapter of Kindle Life. Along with you now, I would like to just bring your attention to certain words and certain points which have been mentioned in the first chapter. As you can see and find out for yourself in future, Gurudev was extraordinary at the English language, and he has used many words which most people normally don't even use in conversation anymore. So, to understand what he means in context to the chapters or to what he has written, let us see the meanings of some of these words. For example, in the second paragraph, it has been mentioned that in their subtle inquiries, they discovered that uncontrolled and excessive indulgence in sensual enjoyments causes dissipation of one's personality and leads to sorrow and misery. Over here, dissipation means squandering or wasting what good traits may be in a person's personality due to excessive indulgence. Some other words also, later on, are injunctions and precepts. Injunctions and precepts are like a red rag to a bull. These two words mean legal or higher authoritative bindings or restraints that have been told for any spiritual practice. Coming further down, let us see the meaning of licentiousness. The sentence over here is, such restraint alone lends a meaning to the freedom of movement and checks its degradation into licentiousness. Over here, the licentiousness word means a disregard for any rules or norms of society. Finally, I would also like to get your attention to two particular sentences. I hope you find them. This is somewhere in the middle of the chapter where it has been mentioned. But the essential nature of a man being absolute freedom, he detests any shackles being put on him. I give you a few moments to find that particular line if you haven't. It is the beginning of a paragraph. Over there, I would like you to either underline or highlight this particular line, especially these words, nature of man being absolute freedom. Kindly just note this down or write it in your notebook if you are taking notes. The second line I would like you to remember is towards the end of the chapter. It is in the second last paragraph if you are reading from the book, where it is mentioned, man is given the liberty either to eke out the maximum happiness for him by following these instructions and harnessing his equipment. I would like you to underline or note this particular words, harnessing his equipment, or to disregard them. Just note these two particular words and keep it with you. But today I have a homework for you too. And that homework is when it is mentioned, little does he realize that freedom essentially built on intelligent self-restraint and discipline. I would like you to ponder on this particular sentence. Gurudev himself has given a wonderful example of a sweetmeat. I think most of us like a sweetmeat or any particular type of food, and we really enjoy seeing it. For many of us, especially if we are a little hungry, it causes even water coming to our mouth if you see something which you particularly like. But as it is mentioned, we eat one, let us see a piece of fantastic chocolate, and we really enjoy it in our mouth, the taste, the flavor that it gives us. When I eat two, not so much. When I eat three, really not so much at all. And if I certainly overindulge into it, in fact, I might start getting a dislike to it. So this particular factor we have to think about. And here, the chocolate or the sweetmeat is just an anonym for something that we indulge in. So kindly think about certain examples which you can think of where you can restrain yourself. Go through this chapter once again. In today, before we start seeing the second chapter tomorrow, and we will discuss all of this on Saturday. If there are any questions, and I can assure you, as you go further into the book, most of your questions will be answered automatically. Isn't that right, Jagdish?
Yeah. We should take the second chapter also today.
Let us start, with the second chapter also, which is the art of right contact. For the first chapter, I have asked you to note down certain things. Now let us begin with the second chapter. Licentiousness is not true freedom, but leads to only one result, which is disaster. When freedom is punctuated by adherence to the laws of nature and recognition of the rights of others, we grow into an ampler field of peace and prosperity. The Constitution of our country recognizes and establishes freedom, but at the same time, it contains a host of rules and regulations restraining us from doing all that we would like to do. These rules and regulations alone lend a meaning to freedom. Similarly, the religious textbooks prescribe certain laws of living which define for us the modes of contact with the world of objects around us, so that we may have a more harmonious existence. When there is an intelligent appreciation and faithful adherence to these laws, we maintain the right contact with the world, and that alone can bring about a healthy life of dynamic existence. This is best illustrated if we take the example of electricity from practical life. One has the freedom to use electricity in one's home in any manner one chooses. Nevertheless, to establish a correct relationship with it and to benefit by it, one has to religiously follow the laws of electricity, or else the same power can mercilessly destroy one. The general complaint is that the world is full of evil and imperfections, disturbances and despairs, and one often wonders how peace and tranquility could be found in their midst. But there is no need to despair, for we should bear in mind that a rough surface is, as a rule, essential for sharpening any dull instrument. When one knows the art of applying the tool to a grindstone, it is the roughness of the stone that alone sharpens the tool. So too in life, when we understand the art of establishing right contact with the world, we chasten and edify our subjective personality. The evils of the world, therefore, are not the great problems and impediments, but man's lack of dexterity in facing the challenges confronting him is the real problem. In not recognizing this simple truth, the right perspective of life is lost, and humanity perpetually complains of bad times and bad weather. Consider, for instance, a glass only half filled with milk. It is viewed differently by different people according to their own emotional and intellectual stature. One looks at the empty upper half and complains that it is not full, while another views the bottom portion and freely enjoys it. When we carefully analyze the attitude of people in general, we find a continuous procession of such unintelligent mourners. A lame man on the wheelchair despairs at the sight of a healthy pair of legs walking past him. But the man who can walk, he sighs at another, swiftly passing him on a scooter. The man with the scooter again is jealous of the motor car owner, and the latter pines away at the thought of having to pay his income tax. Such indeed are the sorrows of all. But there is no need to despair, for the remedy is quite evident. Let us all develop a sense of gratitude to the Lord by focusing our attentions on what we have, which a good many less fortunate have not and are yearning for. By refusing to crave for objects which we do not have, we shall be conserving a lot of mental energy, which alone can give us peace within and a capacity to act rightly in the world. What beautiful words of Gurudev, how simply and nicely explaining to us how we can easily keep our minds at ease and have a peaceful existence. In this chapter too, there are a few words and a few sentences I would like you to note. Right at the beginning of the chapter, the second sentence, in fact, when freedom is punctuated by adherence to the laws of nature and recognition of the rights of others, we grow into the ampler field of peace and prosperity. Over here, the word punctuated means to interrupt at intervals. Another two words I would like you to note in terms of their meaning is in the third paragraph, where it is mentioned about art of establishing the right contact. Let me read out the sentence. So too in life we understand the art of establishing the right contact with the world. We chasten and edify our subjective personality. Over here, chasten would mean to be humbled or be humble. And edify is to improve our own various personalities, mentally, intellectually. Next is a word, continuing in the same paragraph, is man's lack of dexterity.
Mhm.
Dexterity, I think most of us would know, means the skill. Now, about noting or pondering on a particular sentence, kindly note down or underline this particular line, which comes in the same sentence where art of establishing right contact is mentioned.
Mhm.
I will once again read this sentence. So too in life, when we understand the art of establishing right contact with the world, we chasten and edify our subjective personality. Kindly underline or note this, our subjective personality. What does this mean? Let us think about this and ponder.
Mhm.
And like I gave in the chapter number 1, a certain homework for you to find some examples, in chapter number 2, I would like you to please read and ponder over the last paragraph, especially to see in your own life where you can connect with this. By refusing to crave for objects which we do not have, we shall be conserving a lot of mental energy, which alone can give us peace within and a capacity to act rightly in the world.
Mhm.
So, this is the two beautiful chapters that we have read today. And let us see what we can mean when we talk about essential nature of man being absolute freedom in chapter number 1, which I've asked you to note down. Secondly, in chapter number 1, I've asked you to note down harnessing his equipment. Jagdish, can you tell us something more about this?
About the absolute
Yes,
freedom.
please.
Mhm. Understand that Gurudev has written this beautiful book, and all these words are coming out of a Siddh Mahatma. From his point of view, when he speaks of absolute freedom, what it could be? Absolute freedom, where there is no bondage. There can be no bondage only when there is Advaita, when there is singularity. Only when you are completely full, as the Shastra says, that which is Desha, Kala, Vastu, Aparichinna, beyond time, space, and causation. That is absolute freedom according to Gurudev.
So essentially, there is God within us, or God has created us. So, this factor of God, we are calling it God, you can call it power or consciousness, is beyond time, space, and form. So, that which is beyond all of these three is what is the essential nature of man. That is where we have absolute freedom, not bound or shackled by any of these. time, space, or form. The second one was harnessing his equipment.
Human are of four personalities. The mind and the body are the equipment with which the intellect and the self guides its entire journey. So the equipment when we speak of, it is your body, the physical outside, and the mind, the physical inside. The inside and the outside are the equipment upon which the self moves ahead, and these equipments need to be harnessed. Just like to ride a horse, you need to harness the reins properly. If you lose the rein not properly, if you don't hold it, the horse may take you anywhere. Therefore, harnessing the body, its activities, the mind, its thought, is what is indicated.
So we should learn to control our mind, our intellect also, and of course our bodies too. Let us move to chapter number 2, where also I have mentioned one particular set of words that I would like to be explained. When we understand the art of establishing the right contact with the world, we chasten and edify our subjective personality. Can you tell us a little bit about what it would mean, subjective personality?
As most of you know, that we are conducting this Kindle Life book reading as a part of Knowledge of India, a series of studies. In the previous workshop that we took, we had explained about the 4 layers, the 4 personalities that we have, that we are. First, the physical. Second, the mental. Third, intellectual. And finally, the fourth, spiritual. The subjective personality over here, as I explained already, the body and the mind are equipment outside. So naturally, the subjective personality here is the intellect, not the spiritual personality. That is unique, that is different, that is.
So when we allow our actions to be guided by our intellect, that is what the subjective personality over here is. I hope you have enjoyed reading chapter 1 and chapter 2 with me. And tomorrow we will continue with chapter 3 and hopefully chapter 4 too. Let us end this session with this wonderful prayer. And do not forget to do your homework. Ponder over what has been asked of you. And we will continue this journey of learning for me too. I thank all of you, and let us now thank the Bhagwan with a short prayer.
Asito ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari
Hari
Om